3 minutes before the Easter service began, I was ordered to sit in the back pew, exiled like a sinner. My daughter Rebecca stood at the pulpit, her husband close by, while the parishioners filled every seat. Rain tapped against the stained glass windows. I felt the parish house slip from me in their whispers, their eyes fixed not on Christ's rising, but on my supposed shame. But in my breast pocket, tucked behind my Bible ribbon, another truth waited its turn. The smell of lilies choked the air, heavy and sweet, while my bones ached against the wooden pew. Rebecca's voice rang out sharp, speaking of renewal and honesty, her eyes cutting toward me, as if I were a symbol of hidden sin. My son-in-law nodded, his polished shoes clicking against the vestry floorboards when he moved. I watched, my hands clasped over the fraying Bible ribbon that once marked Anne's favored passage. They thought they had the crowd. They thought wrong. "My father has lived long enough in the parish house," Rebecca announced. Her tone carried a rehearsed confidence that tasted of betrayal. A hush rippled through the parishioners. I felt their stares pierce me as if judgment was etched on my skin. I pressed the ribbon tighter, remembering Anne's touch, hearing her soft reminder of patience. But inside me, a fire began to glow. For while Rebecca boasted of future plans for the land, she had no idea what registry papers I held. The parishioners shifted uneasily, some averting their gaze, others leaning forward as though hungry for scandal. Rebecca's husband, tall and broad, stepped forward with the arrogance of possession. He unfurled a map of the church land, describing new wings, rental houses, and profit. His words echoed against the ancient wooden beams. I clenched the Bible ribbon until it cut into my palm. I had given sermons here for 42 years, baptized their children, buried their parents, and yet here I was, reduced to spectacle. The church bell tolled 9 times, each strike rolling through my chest like a verdict. My humiliation became their sermon. Rebecca pointed toward me. "We all must face our flaws, even family. My father clings to what is not his." Gasps and whispers followed. I saw one old friend bow his head, unable to meet my eyes. They didn't know what I knew, didn't see the golden glint of the hidden deed tucked beside Anne's ribbon. That silence was only the beginning. Spring rain hammered harder against the roof, a percussive judgment. My fingers traced the embossed leather of my old Bible, worn smooth over decades. I inhaled its faint must, a scent more comforting than the lilies drowning the altar. Rebecca's voice thundered again. "This Easter marks a new chapter." Her husband leaned in, whispering something into her ear that drew a smile across her face. My shame fed their triumph. Yet beneath their words, I already felt the paper's weight in my pocket tilt the balance. They paraded their vision, tearing down the parish house to build lucrative townhomes. The congregation shifted, caught between reverence and greed. One man clapped before realizing the solemn setting. My jaw tightened. I remembered building the garden behind the parish house with Anne, each rose bush planted with prayer. I could almost hear her voice. "Wait, Lawrence. Patience bears fruit." I closed my eyes. The ribbon pressed into my chest, reminding me that patience was nearly over. A registry twist would bloom soon enough. Rebecca paused to wipe a fake tear, her voice trembling as she said, "It breaks my heart to move my father, but progress demands sacrifice." Murmurs of sympathy circled the pews. My humiliation thickened. The rain eased for a moment, and the golden light spilled through a stained glass window, bathing her in sanctity. A cruel image. My hand hovered over my pocket, brushing the ribbon that bound 2 pieces of truth together. They saw my defeat, but that was only half the truth. When the hymn began, I could not sing. My throat burned too raw. Rebecca's husband carried the basket down the aisle, his smirk aimed at me, as if tides now belonged to his empire. I leaned forward, whispering to myself words no one heard. Soon, my knees cracked as I rose, pretending to stretch. I caught sight of the vestry door, left ajar, voices within. Curiosity tugged me there later, where secrets would spill unguarded. For now I sat back, unseen but listening. After the benediction, Rebecca declared a special announcement. Her words lanced the air. Father will vacate the parish house by month's end. Gasps flared again. I felt the room close in, every eye on me. My shame hung heavy. Yet I forced my face into stillness. Some nodded approval. Some avoided looking. And then, just faintly, I caught my son-in-law whisper near the vestry, "By May, we'll have permits." He believed me broken. He believed the land was theirs. But belief is fragile. The vestry smelled of old wood polish and damp stone. That evening, I lingered behind, hearing muffled laughter spill from inside. Rebecca's voice rang clear. "He won't fight. He's too old, too tired." A stab through my chest. Then her husband added, "By summer, $450,000 in loans will roll in. He'll be long gone by then." I pressed against the wall, bile rising. They didn't know my strength. They didn't know what papers I had already filed at the county registry. That night in the parish house, silence pressed heavy. I lit a single candle, its flame reflecting against the gold-framed photo of Anne. Her eyes, still alive in memory, urged me on. I laid the Bible ribbon across the table, unfolding the document it kept hidden. A deed, inked and sealed, my name bound to the land. I whispered, "Anne, guide me." The rain eased outside, but inside me, a storm gathered. They thought my age weakened me. They would learn patience can sharpen like steel. The days after Easter carried whispers in the village. Rebecca visited parishioners, painting me as stubborn, as clinging to past glory. Her husband shook hands with contractors, his plans growing bolder. I walked slowly among them, a shadow in the garden, nodding politely. They saw frailty in my bent back. They missed the steadiness in my eyes. Each night, I folded and unfolded the deed, smoothing its creases with care. Like the ribbon, its fabric may fray, but its truth endured. On Wednesday, I found Rebecca in the parish kitchen, whispering into her phone. "Father won't resist. He'll hand it over by May." She laughed softly, the sound cutting like glass. I coughed deliberately. She turned, startled, eyes flashing guilt. "Oh, Father, didn't hear you," she stammered. I simply nodded, clutching my Bible. Inside, the ribbon pressed against my heart, binding the secret close. She mistook my silence for surrender. She mistook my age for ignorance. But May was coming fast, and so was reckoning. The vestry became my silent arena. I slipped in at dusk, when only the scent of extinguished candles lingered. There I found their discarded notes, sketches of blueprints, lone figures scrawled in haste. $450,000 promised, $600,000 projected returns. Their greed inked across fragile pages. I folded the scraps and placed them beside my own document. Paper against paper, promise against fact. The contrast tasted sweet. They wielded arrogance, I wielded patience. I wielded truth, and in the end, truth carried heavier weight than vanity. Thursday morning, spring air cool and damp, Rebecca arrived with her husband to show contractors the land. I watched from the window, unseen, as they gestured grandly over ground where Anne and I once planted tulips. Their laughter struck like thunder. I pressed my palm flat against the window pane, cold seeping into my skin. I whispered, "Not yet." The ribbon lay on the table behind me, gleaming in a shaft of golden light. My silence was not weakness. It was sharpened timing. Sunday, parishioners approached me gently, pity in their eyes. One said, "It must be hard, Pastor Loris, losing your home." I smiled faintly, answering only, hardship can teach. They did not see the sparkle in my eyes, the steady hand clutching the Bible ribbon. Rebecca's tale spread like wildfire. The old man defeated, the young generation bringing progress. Progress, they called it. I called it theft, wrapped in sermons. But even fires burn out when rain falls at the right time. Rebecca's husband strutted into the parish office one afternoon, waving papers. He sneered at me. "By May 1st, you're out. Try stopping it." His voice carried venom. I only nodded, eyes calm, hands folded over my book. He mistook my silence for surrender. But inside me, Anne's voice rang clear. "Truth waits." He slammed the door, his laughter echoing down the hall. Alone again, I slipped the ribbon free, gazed at the deed, and whispered, "You will choke on your certainty soon enough." At dusk, I returned to the vestry. Shadows stretched long, mingling with the scent of old incense. There I overheard their private toast. To new beginnings, to profit, to freedom from the past. Laughter spilled over. My daughter's voice cut sharp. "Father won't fight." My chest tightened, anger curling like smoke. I pressed my hand to the wall, grounding myself in stone older than any of us. They toasted with arrogance. I drank in silence. But silence, I knew, could shatter walls when timed. Monday morning, Rebecca arrived early, boxes in hand. "We'll start moving your things, Father. Better to ease into change." Her words dripped with false care. I stepped aside, watching her cross the threshold with greedy eyes. She glanced at Anne's portrait and smirked faintly. I tightened my grip on the Bible. Inside, the ribbon pressed against my ribs, reminding me of loyalty and love. Rebecca stacked the boxes like coffins. She thought this house was dead. She did not know its heartbeat still echoed. That night, I sat at Anne's desk, papers spread before me. I read aloud softly, my voice cracking. "By authority vested in the county registry." The deed shone in candlelight, gold ink glimmering faintly. I closed my eyes, hearing Anne whisper, "Stand firm." I folded it carefully, sliding it beneath the ribbon again. My hands trembled, but not from fear. They trembled with anticipation. The storm outside rattled the windows, thunder rolling deep. Nature echoed my rising resolve. The reckoning was near. Rebecca returned either husband and a clipboard. "We'll need your signature, Father, to transfer things smoothly." She slid the papers across the table. I pretended to fumble, eyes squinting, hands slow. I lifted them, reading their false promises. "It's all legal," her husband insisted, smirk broad. I laid the papers aside. "I'll consider it." His laughter filled the room as though I had admitted defeat. But within my drawer, just inches away, rested the true document. His smirk would not last. Parishioners whispered in the pews that Sunday, "He looks broken. Perhaps it's for the best." I stood slowly, cane in hand, moving toward the pulpit. Eyes widened. Silence fell. Rebecca shifted uneasily. Her husband stiffened. I said nothing, only placed my Bible on the lectern. The ribbon slipped out, crimson against wood, a silent promise of revelation. Murmurs rose, but I closed the book again and returned to my seat. They thought me frail. They mistook silence for surrender. That was only half the truth. The final week of April crackled with tension. Contractors loitered outside, waiting for orders. Rebecca moved through the parish with a queen's air, her husband boasting of new ventures. I walked the halls quietly, listening, watching. The ribbon never left my side. One evening, I overheard their quarrel in the vestry. "What if he fights?" Rebecca hissed. Her husband barked back, "He can't. He has nothing." I smiled in the shadows, pressing the ribbon to my lips. Their certainty was my shield. April 30th arrived with heavy rain. The parish bell tolled 6 times, each strike a countdown. Rebecca and her husband entered the parish house with eviction papers in hand. They found me seated at the table, Bible open, ribbon draped across the page. "Father, it's time," Rebecca said, her voice steady, eyes triumphant. I lifted my gaze slowly, feeling Anne's presence steady me. My hand slid to the drawer, fingers brushing the reversal tool. They had paraded my shame. Now the curtain would rise. Rebecca laid the eviction papers in front of me, her hand tapping impatiently. "Just sign, Father, and this can be painless." Her husband leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, a wolfish grin on his face. Rain drummed harder against the roof, drowning their arrogance in thunder. I placed my hand gently on the Bible ribbon, eyes fixed on them. My silence stretched until discomfort rippled across their faces. Then, slowly, I drew out a different paper entirely, its seal glimmering faintly in the candlelight. "What is that?" Rebecca asked, her voice cracking despite her attempt at calm. Her husband scoffed, stepping forward. "Old sermons won't help you now." I smiled faintly, unfolding the document with careful precision. The rain fell harder, as though the heavens leaned closer. The deed stretched across the table, gold ink catching the candle's glow. Rebecca's eyes widened. Her husband laughed nervously, shaking his head. "Forgery," he muttered, but his tone betrayed doubt. My hands, though aged, were steady as stone. Rebecca's face drained of color as she leaned in to read the words. "By authority vested in the county registry." Her lips stumbled over the phrasing. I tapped the ribbon resting atop the deed. "Filed 12 years ago," I said calmly. Her husband's bravado faltered. He grabbed the papers from her, scanning desperately, his hands trembling. "This can't be right," he hissed. But it was right. It was legal. Their fortress of arrogance cracked under the weight of one hidden truth. Rebecca slammed her hand on the table. "You tricked us." Her shriek echoed against the walls. Parishioners gathering outside, drawn by the noise, paused at the doorway, their eyes widened, whispers rising. I sat still, the deed before me like a crown reclaimed. My son-in-law's face burned crimson, sweat trickling down his temples. The parishioners leaned closer, murmuring of betrayal, of deceit. Rebecca's voice shook with rage, but her power dissolved under the weight of witnesses. The stage was no longer hers. "This deed is fraudulent," her husband bellowed, frosting it into the air. The parishioners gasped. I rose slowly, leaning on my cane, and pointed toward the seal. "Filed, notarized, recorded. County registry confirms." Silence fell heavy. I looked into each parishioner's eyes. "This land is bound to me, not them." The words landed like thunder. Rebecca staggered back, her face pale, her composure gone. The ribbon, crimson against parchment, marked not scripture, but judgment. Their empire collapsed in the space of a breath. The contractors outside began to drift away, confusion etched on their faces. Parishioners whispered, some nodding with approval, others shaking their heads at Rebecca's bold deceit. My daughter tried to speak, but only a croak escaped. Her husband slammed the eviction papers onto the floor, fury twisting his face. I bent slowly, lifting them with a calm hand, then set them aside. "Paper means little," I said softly, without truth. The ribbon swayed between my fingers like a pendulum, its verdict sealed. Rebecca clutched her husband's arm, her voice trembling now. "He can't keep this up. He's too old, too feeble." Her words carried no conviction. I turned toward her, eyes sharp. "Old, perhaps. Feeble, no." Gasps rose among the parishioners. She stepped back, her hand tightening on her husband's sleeve. For the first time, doubt cracked her mask of confidence. The spring rain outside softened, as though pausing to listen. The church seemed to breathe with me, siding with truth over ambition. My son-in-law snarled, his last weapon arrogance. "You can't stop progress. You can't stop us." His fists clenched, veins straining in his neck. I slid the deed back beneath the ribbon, tucking it into my breast pocket. "Progress without honor is rot," I replied. His eyes blazed, but the parishioner's stares bore down on him. He shifted uneasily, his power draining away. Rebecca's lips trembled as she tried to speak. The church bell struck once, its toll reverberating like a gavel of judgment. Whispers erupted in the pews. The land belongs to Pastor Lawrence. Some voices carried anger, others relief. Rebecca broke down, her tears finally real, staining her cheeks. Her husband paced like a caged wolf, unable to lash out with so many eyes watching. I placed my Bible gently on the table, the ribbon draped across its cover, gleaming red in the golden light. "This house," I said evenly, "will not be torn down." The congregation erupted in murmurs. The tide turned fully. Rebecca's husband, in a last desperate attempt, lunged forward to snatch the deed. But I was faster than he expected. My cane struck the table with a crack, the sound like thunder splitting the air. He froze, startled. Parishioners gasped, some rising to their feet. I held my ground, eyes blazing. "No more," I declared. The rain outside ceased, weaving only silence. His hand hovered, then fell limp to his side. The reversal was complete. The curtain fell with one decisive blow. The parishioners spilled into the room, their murmurs swelling into judgmental tones. Rebecca shrank back, her husband silent now, his arrogance shattered. I stood tall despite my age, the deed secure against my chest. The ribbon, crimson and frayed, fluttered as though alive. My eyes scanned the crowd. Some bowed their heads in respect. Others stared wide-eyed, shaken. I said nothing more. The silence was louder than any sermon. My victory was carved not in words, but in the finality of action. Rebecca turned to me, voice barely above a whisper. "Father, how long have you known?" I met her eyes, my silence answer enough. She broke down, sinking into a pew, her sobs echoing hollow through the nave. Her husband stormed toward the door, face crimson, fists clenched. Parishioners parted to let him pass, their eyes hard with the stain. I stood unmoved, the storm within me settling. Anne's voice seemed to murmur again, soft and steady. "You stood firm, Lawrence." I breathed deeply. Outside, the spring air had turned cool and fresh. The rain washed away. Parishioners gathered in small knots, whispering of the reversal they had witnessed. Some looked to me with awe, others with apology for believing the lies. I walked slowly past them, cane tapping against the stone steps. Rebecca remained behind, her sobs trailing like a broken hymn. I did not look back, my eyes fixed on the horizon. Golden light breaking through the clouds, the deed lay secure against my heart. At the edge of the parish garden, tulips Anne and I had planted swayed in the damp breeze. Their petals gleamed with rain, crimson like the ribbon. I paused, touching one gently. "We kept it safe," I whispered. Memories of Anne's laughter brushed against me like wind. The parishioners' voices grew faint behind me. The fight had ended. My dignity, my home, my legacy stood intact. I raised my head, shoulders square, and stepped forward with a steady, unbroken stride. Rebecca emerged at the doorway, her figure small against the towering church. She called after me, voice shaking, "Father, please." I stopped but did not turn. Her words broke in the air, unfinished, unheard. My cane tapped once more on the stone path, a punctuation mark in the silence. The golden light of evening stretched long shadows ahead of me. Behind, the parish whispered of betrayal and justice. Ahead, only the sound of my steps carried, resolute, final. I did not look back. My son-in-law's car roared to life, tires screeching against wet gravel. The noise faded into the distance, leaving the church grounds hushed. Parishioners dispersed slowly, their faces marked with unease. I stood alone near the garden, cane in hand, the deed pressing against my chest. The ribbon fluttered in the breeze like a banner of victory. The parish house windows glowed warm in the setting sun. It was mine, not by sentiment, not by pity, but by law. And law spoke louder than deceit. Rebecca approached again, timid, eyes red and swollen. "Father, I didn't mean," she began, but the words died under my stare. I turned my back, walking toward the parish house door. Each step echoed, firm and deliberate. She collapsed onto the stone steps, sobs racking her frame. The congregation had scattered. Only the sound of her broken cries filled the air. I reached the door, placed my hand on the handle, and whispered softly to myself, "Patience bears fruit." Then I entered. Inside, the parish house smelled of damp wood and candle wax. I closed the door behind me, shutting out the world. The silence was thick, a cloak of triumph. I laid the Bible on the table, ribbon draped across its cover, and placed the deed beside it. My hands shook, not from fear, but from release. Anne's photo gleamed faintly in the candlelight, her eyes steady and kind. "It is done," I whispered. The storm had passed. The house still stood, unbroken. I sat in Anne's chair, Kane resting beside me. My eyes traced the walls of the parish house, every scratch, every mark a memory. Laughter from children's baptisms, tears from funerals, prayers whispered in shadows. All still alive here, all mine. Outside, Rebecca's sobs faded into silence. The house exhaled with me, breathing peace. The ribbon curled gently on the table, its frayed edges glowing in the candlelight. My eyes closed, body weary, but spirit unbowed. Tomorrow would come. Tonight, I rested victorious. The storm returned faintly, rain pattering against the windows, softer now, almost tender. I listened, the sound a hymn only I could hear. The deed lay secure, the ribbon across it like blood sealing covenant. My heart slowed, calm, steady. Outside, the church bell struck once more, its tone rolling deep. I leaned back, closing my eyes. My final act echoed in silence, carved not in sermon, but in law. The curtain fell, with my hand resting firm on the table. Morning came, gray and cool, the rain gone, but the ground still soaked. I rose early, cane in hand, and opened the shutters. Parishioners passed quietly outside, some offering small nods, others avoiding my gaze. The whispers of betrayal had traveled fast. I stood tall in the window, letting them see me, not broken, not removed. The parish house stood whole, anchored by truth. The ribbon dangled from my pocket, crimson against my coat, a visible mark of victory none could deny. Rebecca did not come that morning. Her husband's car was gone from the village, rumor saying he fled to the city in shame. The silence of their absence filled the air sweeter than any hymn. I walked through the parish garden, damp tulips brushing against my cane. A few parishioners stopped, bowing their heads in respect. One whispered, "We were wrong." I nodded, but spoke nothing. My eyes drifted to Anne's roses, still blooming. They stood as proof that patience, not greed, endures. By noon, a county official arrived, summoned by the noise of conflict. He stepped into the parish house, his shoes squeaking on damp stone. "Pastor Lawrence," he asked. I handed him the deed without hesitation. He scanned it, nodding. "Filed, notarized, binding," he said firmly. His tone carried finality. He returned it with respect. Parishioners gathered outside, catching fragments of his words. The truth spread like wildfire, silencing all doubts. I tucked the ribbon, indeed, back into my pocket, unshaken. Rebecca returned by evening, eyes hollow, her steps dragging. She stood in the doorway, unable to enter. "Father," she whispered, voice raw, "I didn't know." I studied her, the candlelight flickering against her pale face. Her husband's nowhere in sight. She reached out a trembling hand toward the threshold, but pulled back, as though burned. I said nothing. My silence cut deeper than any words. She turned away slowly, shoulders hunched, her figure shrinking into the shadows of the churchyard. The days that followed were hushed, the parish uneasy. Some tried to console Rebecca, others avoided her entirely. Her husband was gone, leaving only rumors behind. I remained in the parish house, steady and visible. The ribbon never left my breast pocket, a scarlet thread of memory and proof. At night, I lit a candle beneath Anne's portrait, whispering prayers of thanks. Justice had been served, not by fury, but by truth carried patiently. The house creaked softly, alive with peace once more. On the first Sunday of May, I walked to the pulpit again. The congregation shifted uneasily, unsure what I would say. I placed my Bible before me, ribbon gleaming red across its cover. My voice was steady. This house remains, not by my will alone, but by truth. Silence filled the room, then a slow ripple of nods. Rebecca sat in the back, head bowed. My words were not for her, not for revenge, but for the house itself. Justice stood beside me. The parishioners lingered after the service, some approaching me with tears, others with apologies. I accepted their words with a quiet nod. The sun broke through clouds, spilling golden light across the nave. The ribbon glowed as though aflame. Rebecca slipped away silently, her absence heavier than her presence. I watched her retreat, cane firm in my hand. There would be no reconciliation today. The land, the house, the legacy remained untouched. The betrayal was carved into memory. But so too was the justice. That evening, I walked once more through the parish garden. The air smelled of damp soil and blooming roses. Each flower Anne planted still stood, each one a silent witness. I paused by her favorite rosebush, fingers brushing soft petals. "We kept it," I whispered. The ribbon brushed against my knuckles, its frayed edges catching light. My heart ached, not with sorrow, but with completion. The house still breathed, the land still mine. Betrayal had passed. What remained was truth, anchored like stone. Late at night, the parish lay in silence. I sat at the table, candle flickering, deed folded carefully beside the Bible. The ribbon curled lazily across both, crimson against parchment and leather. My hands rested steady on the wood, the storm within finally gone. Outside, the rain returned lightly, tapping like a gentle hymn on the glass. I leaned back, eyes heavy, whispering only one word into the stillness. Anne. The house held me close, as if answering with the strength of memory. The following week brought quiet order. The contractors never returned. Rebecca moved her belongings from the parish grounds, her steps slow and ashamed. Parishioners turned their faces from her, their whispers harsh. I watched from the window, my cane resting against the sill. The ribbon hung from my pocket like a warning flag, visible to any who dared doubt. She glanced up once, catching sight of it, then turned away quickly. My silence remained unbroken, more powerful than any sermon or rebuke. One evening, I found a letter slipped under my door. Rebecca's handwriting, uneven, desperate. It begged forgiveness, pleaded for understanding, claimed ignorance of her husband's schemes. I read it slowly, the candlelight trembling across her words. I folded it once, twice, and set it beneath the Bible ribbon. Forgiveness might come in time, but trust had died. The house groaned in the night wind, its old timbers whispering history. I listened, choosing silence over reply. The truth stood firm. Words could not change it. The parish slowly healed. Services grew steadier, whispers softened. Parishioners brought bread and flowers, tokens of apology and respect. I accepted them with a nod, placing the bread on the altar, the flowers in Anne's vase. The ribbon rested always beside me, a red line binding past and present. My cane tapped firmly against stone floors, announcing my presence, my survival. No one asked again about the land. It was settled, sealed, irreversible. Betrayal had been met with patience. Patience had delivered justice. On a warm May evening, golden light spilled across the parish yard. Children ran between tulips, their laughter clear and bright. I stood by the garden, leaning on my cane, watching. Parents waved to me, respect soft in their eyes. Rebecca's figure lingered at a distance, half hidden in shadow, watching as well. She did not approach. I did not invite. The ribbon in my pocket pulsed faintly, as though alive. The balance of the house remained intact, unbroken, untouched. Justice breathed, still. Summer crept closer, the days longer, the parish house warmer. I opened the windows, letting fresh air roll in. A scent of roses and damp earth filled the rooms. The deed rested in its drawer, ribbon laid across it like a seal. Parishioners no longer whispered of betrayal, only of the house that endured. Rebecca rarely appeared now, her shame keeping her distant. Her husband never returned. Silence stretched between us, but I did not mourn it. Silence was enough. Silence was victory. On June's first Sunday, I ended my sermon with no words of reconciliation, no plea for peace. I closed the Bible, ribbon gleaming crimson across its cover, and simply walked down the aisle. Parishioners parted in silence, their eyes following. Rebecca was absent. The pews felt lighter without her schemes. My cane struck the stone floor in steady rhythm, final and decisive. The parish house loomed beyond the doors, golden in the morning light. It stood untouched, secure. The curtain had fallen for good. In the garden, I paused one last time before the tulips Anne and I planted. Their red petals shimmered in the sun, bright as the ribbon in my pocket. I whispered her name once more, soft and certain. My hand tightened on the cane, body steady, heart calm. I turned back toward the parish house, its walls rising firm, its windows glowing. The land, the house, the legacy endured. My silence was unbroken, my victory sealed. I stepped forward, the final act complete. The parish bell tolled noon, its sound rolling across the village like thunder softened by time. I stood on the threshold of the parish house, hand on the door. Behind me, the church whispered of betrayal and truth, of greed and justice. Ahead, only silence, steady and golded. I pushed the door open slowly, cane striking against the stone floor once more. The ribbon brushed against my chest, crimson against my coat. The curtain closed there, with one simple step. Nothing more. The final sound was not of voices, nor of weeping, nor of thunder. It was the creak of the parish house door as it closed behind me. The deed rested secure, the ribbon gleaming faintly in the dim light. Silence swallowed all else. No words of triumph, no moral, no reflection followed. Only the act remained, the door shut, the house intact, the land untouchable. The curtain fell, swift and irrevocable. Nothing more was said, nothing more was needed. The end cut sharp. The latch clicked once, final and unyielding. The parish house was mine, not by gift, not by mercy, but by law, by truth, by patience. Outside, whispers faded. Inside, silence reigned. I laid the ribbon on the table one last time, crimson against wood. My cane leaned beside me, steady as ever. The rain began again, faint but sure, tapping against the windows. I sat down slowly, hands folded, eyes closed. The act was complete. The story ended here, with nothing left unsaid. No voices intruded, no footsteps followed. Only the steady patter of rain filled the air. The parish house walls held strong, every beam a testament. The deed, folded and sealed, rested beneath the ribbon. My eyes closed, body sinking into the chair. The weight of betrayal lifted, the fight done. Silence draped the room like cloth. The story had no after, no echo, no reflection. It ended with the rain, the ribbon, the house intact. Nothing more. The curtain fell and stayed. The silence thickened, a presence greater than words. My cane laid by my side, the ribbon across the table, the deed secure. No movement followed, no sound but rain. The church bell did not ring again. The house breathed with me, steady, whole, final. The trail had ended, justice completed. There was no sermon left, no prayer to speak. The story closed not in words, but in silence. The cut was sharp, absolute. One hacked, one end. The parish house remained. The silence ruled. The room darkened as clouds returned, rain slanting harder against the windows. I did not move. The deed rested, the ribbon curled, the cane steady. Silence pressed thick, impenetrable. The story had reached its end, no echoes remaining. No reconciliation, no epilogue. Only the finality of truth standing over betrayal. The parish house groaned softly, alive still, stronger than deceit. My hands rested calm on the table. No more was needed. The curtain cut sharp, swift. Nothing followed. The act was final. The rain slowed once more, dwindling into faint drops. The parish house stood unmoved, walls steady, roof firm. The deed remained sealed, the ribbon vivid against wood. My cane leaned upright, silent sentinel. There were no words left, no faces, no whispers. Only the unbroken silence remained. Betrayal had been met, truth revealed, patience rewarded. The house endured. The end required no explanation, no reflection, no farewell. It was cut here, blunt, decisive. Silence reigned. Nothing more followed. Nothing ever would. The candle burned low, its wax pooling on the table, crimson ribbon beside it. Shadows stretched long, unmoving. My eyes fixed on nothing. Breath, even, steady. The parish house groaned faintly in the night wind. No voices came. No footsteps echoed. The end had arrived and stayed, final and sharp. No sermon, no afterthought, no appeal. Betrayal was buried. Justice remained. The story closed in silence, without ornament. Only the cut mattered. It had been delivered. Nothing remained. The silence endured. The wick sputtered, flame dying at last, leaving darkness thick. Rain whispered against the glass, faint but unbroken. My cane rested still, the ribbon sprawled red, the deed sealed beneath. The parish house held its breath. Betrayal had ended, the reversal delivered. There was no epilogue, no parting word. Only the action stood, final and complete. The silence ruled, hard as stone. The curtain fell here, and it did not rise again. The story ended on that act, and nothing followed.